I noticed there weren't very many videos on the Nikon D2X on YouTube, so I thought I would do a quick rundown of the camera and just tell you a few things about it. Some things that you will like in 2018 and some things that you definitely will not like in 2018. So the D2X came out in, I believe, 2005, late 2004, 2005. It was the high resolution version model of the D2H. It has 12 megapixels. It does about 4 or 5 frames a second. It is a crop censored body, so it does have a 1.5 time crop factor. But other than that, it's a pro level body. This camera was about $5,000 back in 2005. And today you can find them for about anywhere from $200 to I'd say $400. I wouldn't pay anything over $300 personally. If you want a pro weather sealed body, it's a great deal, but you have to know its limitations. So let me start here. I will show you the back screen. Nothing too fancy. It's a pretty low resolution screen. I just have got some test shots on here. It's certainly, it's a little better than the D2H. It's a little higher resolution, and I have it set up so that it will flash the highlight warning for me, which you can see there. It's an okay screen, nothing great. The most annoying thing with these old camera screens is you can technically zoom in, but that's all you get. It's like a 2x zoom, and then you can't go any further, and it probably honestly doesn't have the resolution to be able to do that anyway. Other than that, the layout of the camera is pretty similar to most modern digital Nikons, SLRs. I like these big pro body cameras. I like the dedicated buttons they have. It's nice to have the ISO. You can change whether you shoot RAW or JPEG or both, the white balance, all these things. I like having these, I like having a button instead of having to go into a menu or have to do a sequence of buttons. Other than that, this camera is pretty standard as far as a professional DSLR goes. I do have this is a Eyepiece Magnifier. This is for the D1, D2, D3. I think it works all the way up to the D5 as far as I know. I think it's the DK17M, I believe is the model. It's a 1.3 times magnifier, and I would recommend it for any camera body, especially crop censored cameras. It really takes the tunnel vision that you get with some of these, especially older DX cameras, and it really magnifies it. So you get a nice big viewfinder. It does steal some light, but not much. You can see there, it does magnify it quite a bit. So I would recommend that for a lot of crop censored cameras. As far as image quality goes, like I said, 12 megapixel camera. For 2005, that was pretty good. That was, I would say, average on the higher end. There weren't that many cameras that had more than that I know of. And the biggest downfall with the sensor on this camera is definitely the ISO capability. That is pretty much the only thing that would keep this from still being I would say, a competitive, usable option for a camera today. Most people will say it's an ISO 400 camera. I'm okay with pushing it up to 800. obviously by today's standards, that is very bad. That's, you know, most cameras now can easily go up to 3200, 6400, and you don't even have to think about it. This camera, anything past 800, and you're doing a lot of post-processing, trying to get rid of the noise and artifacts. The good thing I will say about this camera is at base ISO 100, it has noise-free images, and they're probably some of the cleanest files I have seen from a camera. Even newer sensors, they're very clean. The acuity on the sensor is the outline of the in focus and out of focus areas. So if I was to take a picture here, these edges that separate from what's in focus to the background is the acuity. And I'm simplifying this a lot, but this camera, the sensor in this camera really emphasizes that out of focus, in focus line, and they look awesome. I know it's a DX camera, crop censored camera, but for things like portraits, this camera works. This is an awesome camera to use. The biggest thing that keeps me from using this camera more, though, obviously, is the ISO. With that low of ISO capability, it makes it really difficult to shoot. I did some senior portraits with this camera. Most of them turned out absolutely great. However, in lower light situations where honestly I probably only needed ISO 1600 to get the images I wanted, I couldn't do it, and that was frustrating. If you think you can deal with that, if you already have a wide array of crop censored specific lenses like this Tokina 12-24, I would say this wouldn't be a bad camera to buy if you can deal with the ISO. That's going to be the biggest thing for most people. The image quality out of this camera is excellent. It's very good. 12 megapixels is more than enough for most people. Most people would say to buy a D300 over this camera because it has much better ISO capabilities, and it's a little bit more of a modern camera while still being very well made. However, if you really want a vertical grip that's built in and the toughness of these professional bodies, I would say you could look at this as an option. For $200, you're getting a lot of camera for your money, and you just have to know what its limitations are. For most people, I would say probably get something newer. You know, I would recommend for most people to get a D300 over something like this. However, if you just want to try it out, have some fun, this isn't a bad option. You can still buy batteries for it. Brand new, it takes the same batteries as like the D3 does. Battery life is good. You can use, unlike some of the older cameras, you can use whatever size CF card you want. You don't have to worry about it being too large. It only has one card slot though, so keep that in mind. It does not have dual card slots. So overall, I'd say this is if you want a pro body camera and you don't want to spend very much money, maybe you just kind of want something to play around with, check it out, you know, then sell it on later, I would say it would be worthwhile checking out. The files you do get from this camera are very good, but I would say compared to what came even a couple years after this camera, it's just really not, there's better options out there. I would say if you want something comparable but need better ISO performance, you can get a D300 for probably around $300, and I would say that's a better option. Otherwise, there's a lot of newer cameras for in the similar price range that might sacrifice the build quality, but you would get more megapixels, certainly better ISO capabilities at the expense of toughness. If you have if you want speed, if you want a camera like this, but you want a faster frame rate, as far as image quality, you don't really care so much. You're not printing big, you know, maybe it's just for, you know, if it's going in a newspaper or small online use, but you want something rugged and weather sealed. D2Hs are around the same price as this, but those do 8 frames a second. And same build quality, and those you can actually use up to ISO 1600. You're gonna do a lot of noise reduction, but they're usable. So that's what I would recommend if you want an older pro-bodied camera. But I would say for most people, get something newer, something with better ISO performance. As, like I said, that's really this camera's main drawback, is its ISO performance. If it wasn't for that, I would have no problem using this camera all the time. But as it is now, I don't use it very often because of that. It's certainly not worth lugging a big heavy camera like this around for if you're not gonna be able to use it all the time. So that's my quick review on the Nikon D2X. Something fun to play around with if you want a pro body camera, but overall I would definitely check out something newer. I think you will be a little more satisfied with the ISO performance. So if you have any questions, put them in below. I'll be happy to answer any. If you want me to make any other videos, maybe comparing this camera with some of the other older DSLRs I have, just let me know and I will make a video on that.